Hi, this is Mark Anderson, and in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you 7 critical items that will fly off the shelves the second a crisis hits. So you can get them now before the general public goes into a panicked buying frenzy. And I'll even show how you can store them safely to protect them from desperate mobs who are ready to commit any crime to get what they need. I'm going to share the 3 sneaky moves the government makes before a crisis. Identifying these actions will warn you that a disaster is coming before it's even mentioned in the news, so you can secure your supplies or get anything you're low on before the mobs go crazy. And finally, I'll pull back the curtain on false myths about stockpiling that can get you killed when disaster strikes, including the simple $6 item that I forgot, which almost cost my daughter's life. In fact, if you simply do what I say in this short video and put it into action, like thousands of hard concerned patriots have done before you, you'll have a bulletproof stockpile ready to help your family survive the first 100 days and beyond of any disaster. Whether you're faced with an EMP, World War III, or even a nuclear attack, and you'll do it without spending hours on research, wasting thousands of dollars on unnecessary items, or losing any sleep worrying about your family's survival. The most exciting part is, you'll see how to build this stockpile in just 10 days. There's a reason I'm urgently recording this message to you right now. As we sit here calmly, our country is bracing itself for a series of disasters that are going to destroy the lives of hundreds of thousands of people. I'm not talking about tragedies you may already be aware of, like hurricanes, earthquakes, or even tornadoes. These are devils, you know. If your area is prone to those, you probably already know how to prepare. What I'm concerned about, and you should be too, are disasters that will be threatening in a brand new way. I call these disasters the survival black swans. These catastrophes you haven't personally experienced, which means you have no idea what you may or may not need when they strike. Your survival when these survival black swans strike depends on your access to essential items. But the problem is, when they hit, or when the news even smells one coming, you won't be able to find them anywhere. Just like in 2020, when the public sensed the lockdown coming, and everything from food and medical supplies to laptops and home exercise equipment went out of stock. Even cleaning supplies like toilet paper were nowhere to be found. That's how things will be for weeks or even months on end when disaster strikes. Think about it. What would you do if violence or terrorism erupts in the streets around you, making it impossible to even step out without the risk of being attacked? Would you be forced to beg your neighbors for scraps? How will you survive if news of a disaster like a hurricane or snowstorm sends the general public into a panic buying frenzy? Or if a political crisis, war, or economic collapse ravaged the country and made it impossible to get supplies in or out? Would you survive based on just what's in your home now? Do you have what you need to survive blackouts that last weeks, making it impossible for anyone, even supermarkets, to store food safely? Or would your kids be forced to go hungry? What about if supply chain issues make it impossible for you to access critical items like food or even medications? 2022 already saw this happening with baby formula, with moms having to shell out $800 to get formula for their babies from hoarders who took advantage of the situation. In 2023, these shortages are only going to spread to even more critical items. Because the moment the public even smells a disaster coming, you'll be hit with out-of-stock signs that will leave you kicking yourself for not taking action earlier. The good news is, in just a few minutes, I'm going to hand you a 10-day roadmap that will allow you to build a bulletproof stockpile. One that takes away any doubt in your mind about whether your stockpile will be enough to protect your family. Once you put this plan into action, you won't have to fear the thought of a shit hit the fan situation coming your way, because you'll be 100% confident that your family will comfortably survive the first 100 days and beyond of any crisis. Imagine turning on the news and hearing the anchor's trembling voice announce that multiple countries have launched military attacks against each other and the situation is rapidly escalating. And watching your neighbors hurriedly drive off to the store to get their hands on anything that's still on the shelves before your area's access to essentials is cut off completely. All the while, you're calmly sitting in the comfort of your home, knowing you've already done your part to protect your family. That's exactly what this 10-day roadmap to a bulletproof stockpile will do for you. Now, who am I to make this promise anyway? Like I said, my name is Mark Anderson. I'm a 53-year-old veteran living in Texas with my beautiful wife and 2 gorgeous little girls. I became who I am today because of 9/11. I remember like it was yesterday. I couldn't take my eyes off the TV as I watched in disbelief when the plane flew into the second tower. Like everyone else, I was completely blindsided. The thought of being unprepared was unsettling, and that day I knew I needed to take action to ensure my family and I would be safe in any emergency. Today, I work with Survivopedia, one of the leading survival websites on the planet. In fact, our readers call me the stockpile scientist because over the last 2 years, I've helped hundreds of working Americans just like you build their stockpile in just 10 days. In fact, a lot of them wrote to me to thank me for my work. Like Benjamin Foster, who said, "I wish I found this before I started building my stockpile. I can't believe how much time and money I've wasted." Or Ethan Phillips, who said, "When I found this, I was a total beginner. This guide made it easy for me to build my stockpile quickly. I'm happy it's there if I ever need it." And those are just 2 of hundreds of emails I get every week from people all over the country who are shocked, amazed, and even a little angry when they realize that they've been spending thousands of dollars on stockpiling unnecessary items while missing out on critical items that are sometimes even under $10. What surprised me the most is most of these people tell me that they thought they had a bulletproof stockpile before this. The kind they thought they could rely on in the face of any disaster. The kind that left nothing to chance. They'd spend hours researching exactly what they need in a survival scenario. But only when they went through my 10-day roadmap did they notice the glaring gaps in their stockpile. The kind of gaps that would have caused them to watch their family go hungry for weeks, even if they thought they'd stockpiled enough frozen foods and MREs. The kind that would force them to live in complete darkness, even if they bought the best generator on the market. The kind that left their home vulnerable to attacks from gangs and rioters, even if they had an arsenal of guns and ammunition to defend themselves. Like I said, I'm going to share my 10-day roadmap to a bulletproof stockpile to help your family survive the first 100 days and beyond of any disaster. So you don't have to worry about any of this. But before I do that, let me tell you why I care so deeply about building the right stockpile. See, I didn't start off as the stockpile scientist. In fact, 3 years ago, I let my family go through hell because I forgot to stockpile a simple $6 item that I couldn't find anywhere when I really needed it. This one mistake cost my family and I a world of pain. But the good news is, making these mistakes myself means I can save other concerned patriots just like yourself from going through what I did. Because the truth is, you can either learn by making mistakes yourself, like I did, or by being smart enough to learn from the mistakes of others and avoid suffering the same consequences. Today, you have the opportunity to choose the second option, and I hope you do, despite how embarrassing it might be for me to accept what happened. Because just like the people I talked to above, I was completely blindsided too when I realized the mistakes I made while building my stockpile. See, back then, I was living in Haiti, in the midst of the worst humanitarian crisis the country had ever seen. The country had just been hit by the worst earthquake since the 18th century, which made it almost impossible for essentials to come in and out of a city. Children across the country were starving because their parents couldn't afford to pay the new inflated prices for food. Cholera crisis had mercilessly taken the lives of over 10,000 innocent people that had zero hope of survival, because without electricity and medication, even hospitals shut down. What's even worse, gangs had taken over the city and nothing came in or out without their knowledge or approval. If you went out to buy supplies, you risked getting robbed, attacked, or even killed. But while all this was happening, the moment you entered our house, it was almost like entering a safe haven untouched by the chaos outside. I remember I'd show off to my wife that we had a stocked up fridge, clean running water, and uninterrupted electricity while the rest of the country was fighting for scraps. She'd laugh and say I'm showing off, but I could see in her eyes that she was grateful for what we had. That was until one day my wife turned to me and said, "If something happens to Harper, I'll never forgive you." Harper was my 6-year-old daughter. My life truly changed the moment she was born. She was a total goofball. No matter how tough the day'd been, her smile and loving embrace always made me feel better. But on this day, we watched a girl who was so full of life barely hanging on, as a disease, an easily preventable one, wreaked havoc on her body. We saw Harper as a shell of the happy little girl she once was. We saw her losing hope that she'd even ever get better again. My 6-year-old daughter had just become the target of the cholera crisis because of my mistake. And there was nothing I could do to fix it. See, about 6 weeks before, my wife's words sent shivers down my spine. My generator stopped working, all because I forgot to stockpile one simple $6 item. And no, it wasn't because of batteries or fuel. I had both of those. What I didn't realize then was that this one mistake was going to cost me more than I can imagine. Because when your generator stops, electricity isn't the only thing you give up. Suddenly, you find yourself with no way to store food securely. The 100 pounds of meat and vegetables I had in my freezer, the food I had spent hundreds of dollars on, was relying on to get us through the next few months, all gone because the freezer wouldn't work. And if that wasn't bad enough, the power outage also meant that our security system stopped working. Despite having multiple alarm systems, including a motion sensor that alerted us when someone was in proximity to our house, one day we came home to find that robbers had quietly taken everything they could get their hands on. Because without power, our entire security system fails. I'm talking about months of food gone. My ammunition nowhere to be seen. They'd even gotten their hands on our medicine cabinet and left that empty too. I'll never forget the scared look on my wife and my little girl's face when they saw that everything was gone. They were only grateful they weren't at home when it happened. Having to face the fact that my family was in danger because of my foolishness is something I wouldn't wish on any man. And just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, my daughter caught a life-threatening disease that had taken the lives of 10,000 people in Haiti, all because our electric water filter no longer worked. And while I filtered our water through chemical treatments, they clearly weren't effective. The worst part is, there was nothing I could do to help while I watched my little girl suffer. All the medication I'd stockpiled had been stolen by the robbers. I had to beg my neighbors for help. It took another week of watching Harper's body reject any food and water we tried to give her, until we started seeing signs of improvement. Today, her body still hasn't fully recovered from the toll the disease took on her. I'm only grateful she made it. The fear of almost losing your daughter after something like this never really leaves you. I wasn't just scared, I felt angry. Angry at the state of the world, angry at the robbers, but mostly angry at myself for putting my little girl in a position where she had to suffer like this. I was her dad. I was supposed to protect her. And I swore right then and there, I would never let my little girl suffer like that again, nor anyone in my family for that matter. The fact is that all this happened because I forgot to stockpile a simple $6 item that kept eating away at me. I knew the only way to fix this was to go on a mission to build a bulletproof stockpile, one that leaves nothing to chance. The kind that makes it look like I practically have my own little Walmart, Home Depot, Walgreens, and even Hyatt guns right here in my basement. And I did it. I'll show you pictures in just a minute. But first, you need to know the $6 item I forgot that caused all this. See, I had a generator that ran on fuel. I was confident that I'd stockpiled enough fuel to allow the generator to run for months. So when it was time to add more, I headed over to my garage to grab some and filled it in. To my surprise, even with a full tank of fuel, the generator refused to run. I couldn't understand why this was happening. I thought maybe it was broken, so I tried to check all the parts, but I couldn't find anything wrong. That's when it hit me. I'd forgotten that fuel breaks down just after 3 to 6 months. A million thoughts raced through my mind. What were you thinking, Mark? How could you be so stupid? Of course fuel breaks down. I couldn't take the thought of telling my family that we were going to have to live without electricity, so I took the risk and snuck out. I went all around the city looking for fuel, drove through dangerous areas, praying that I returned safe. But we were in the midst of the worst fuel shortage in my country, and I was forced to come back empty-handed. I knew we'd have to survive this way for weeks, without power, without safe drinking water, without enough food. The worst part is, I just remembered that fuel breaks down and I needed to stockpile a simple $6 lifesaver, fuel stabilizer. None of this would have happened. Later that night, I sat my family down and told them the bad news. It's crushing when your kids realize that their dad was wrong and your wife feels like you failed to protect the family, even if they'd never say it. That night, I knew I'd let them down, miserably. But I also knew I couldn't ever let it happen again. When I finally managed to get a supply of fuel weeks later, I decided to start from scratch and took a hard look at my stockpile. If I forgot something as simple as fuel stabilizer, what else was I forgetting? Like I said, until a simple $6 item caused my family to go weeks without food and safe drinking water and left us vulnerable to attacks, I thought I'd done the best job I could to protect my family. I remember taking my wife down the basement when things started to get really bad in Haiti and showing off everything we had stockpiled. When family would call to check in on us, I'd tell them that there was no way of any of the chaos outside would affect us. So you can imagine my surprise when things started to take a turn for the worse. And I wasn't alone. My friends here in Haiti all had similar stories to share. I spoke to Michael, whose home was severely damaged by the first Category 4 hurricane to hit Haiti in over 50 years. His roof was blown off and his windows broken. But when the hurricane had passed and he tried to shop for tarps and plywood to temporarily cover up the damaged areas, he couldn't find any. The mobs had already taken everything they could find and get their hands on, which meant his family had to live in an exposed home at a time of severe weather conditions and civil unrest in Haiti. I also spoke to John, who lost I don't even know how many sacks of food to a mice infestation he couldn't get rid of in his kitchen. If he had simply stored a $10 bag of diatomaceous earth powder, he could have saved his entire stockpile. His family wouldn't have had to ration out their canned food to survive. The problem is, when disaster strikes, these critical items are nowhere to be found. These items disappear at even the hint of a crisis. And without them, your family is not prepared. Even the few items that are available are sold for a huge markup. Because even though the average American doesn't know what to look for, they'll grab anything and everything from the store. My only option now was to go on a mission to build a foolproof stockpile so I can protect my family without burning a hole in my pocket. Then it wouldn't matter if an item was out of stock everywhere or if it was selling at 10 times the price. In fact, I knew that if I had items that others really needed, I'd be able to barter or even sell them for a huge markup. So I spent the next few months locked up in my basement trying to discover what else I'd been missing. I acted like a scientist. I wanted to discover exactly where people go wrong while building their stockpiles and how to fix it. After reading countless personal accounts from people who had survived disasters and emergency situations, and learning directly from people who already lived a self-sufficient lifestyle, including the Amish, the Mormons, and the Inuit tribe of Alaska. I still couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing from my research. So I leveraged my relationship with Survivopedia and looked for survival experts I could interview. My only criteria was they had to have gone through an actual disaster themselves. I didn't want to learn from people that were just relying on other books and resources. Their guess was as good as mine. And clearly, doing that didn't really get me anywhere in the past. I wanted to learn from experts with real life experience, the kind I'd gone through to realize my stockpile wasn't good enough. I'll never forget the stories I heard during these interviews. The pain in their voices was still fresh as they recounted the horrors they had witnessed. Families torn apart, homes destroyed, and livelihoods shattered. These were not just stories, they were scars etched into the very fabric of their beings. Their experiences were a chilling reminder that disaster can strike at any moment, and the toll it takes is unbearable. The only thing you can do is prepare now before it's too late. I spoke to people like Juan H., who is surviving an economic collapse in Venezuela, and Albert C., a 60-year-old man from the Philippines, a country that has been ravaged in the last few decades by floods, cyclones, droughts, earthquakes, tsunamis, and landslides. But the conversation that stuck with me the most was with Jerome, who had survived 3 civil wars in West Africa, in Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Gambia. The conversation with him was a light bulb moment for me. As I explained what my friends and I had gone through in Haiti, he stopped me and asked, "Do you realize what the common thread in all your stories is, don't you?" Confused, I asked him what he meant. He went on to say, "None of you struggled because you didn't stock up on obvious essentials. You all had enough food on the table. You had safe drinking water. You even had power while the most of the country lived in rolling blackouts. The tipping point for all of you were items that are usually an afterthought. Things you didn't realize were necessary for you to sustain your essentials, like fuel stabilizer in your case, or diatomaceous earth for John, or tarps and plywood for Michael. Forgetting these items, Mark, can mean the difference between life and death in a disaster. Because while you might remember to keep all the essentials, you also need these stockpile saviors, or you risk losing everything." Hearing this was like a wake-up call. I went back through the survival manuals most preppers use as a guide and realized none of them mention these items. Not a single one. How could that be? How could resources calling themselves survival manuals miss out on items that could render the entire stockpile useless? That's when I decided I needed to scour through the hundreds of hours of research I'd done and build my own stockpile. A bulletproof one. One that left nothing to chance. It wasn't easy, but I knew I couldn't rest until I did it. Once I had my new research compiled, the first thing I did was use it to fill in the gaps I had in my own stockpile. I was shocked and even a little angry at things I'd forgotten myself. Then I sent it to John and Michael. Both of them wrote back thanking me, saying I'd probably save them from another crisis. But what came after that was unexpected. See, I didn't expect John and Michael to share my research with anyone else, but they took the liberty of sharing it with their friends and family. Now soon, I was receiving emails from people I'd never heard of. Not just to thank me for putting in the work, but also to ask me questions about where to find the items I spoke about. Friends of friends of friends suddenly relying on me for advice on their stockpile. Initially, I was a little pissed off with John and Michael for sharing my checklist because I was suddenly spending every morning responding to emails. But when we talked it out, they helped me see that I probably saved dozens of those families from being helpless in a disaster. They pushed me to share my stockpiling system with the world, but I couldn't do that. Not yet, at least. Not in this form. If I was going to release this to the public, I wanted it to have 4 things. Number 1, it had to be easy to implement. Most resources out there tell you what you need, but not where to find these items, which makes it hard to actually put the stockpile together. I didn't want to just give out a list of items. I also wanted to make sure people could find these items themselves, which meant including links and sources for everything I mentioned. Number 2, it had to be complete. If I was going to release it with my name on it, I wouldn't dare to put it out something without any gaps in it. I needed to do everything in my power to make sure it was truly complete and left nothing out. That meant researching every possible scenario, no matter how unlikely, and including all the essentials needed to survive these scenarios and all the stockpile saviors. Number 3, it had to have context. There was no point giving out a checklist if people didn't understand why an item is crucial. They'd just skip buying it if I did that, and we would end up right back to where we started. That's why I wanted to accompany the checklist with a comprehensive guide on stockpiling. Number 4, it needed to be fit every budget. Budget is often a barrier in building a bulletproof stockpile, but I wanted to make sure money didn't stand in the way for anyone. That's why I made it a priority to find affordable options that fit every budget, so you can build your stockpile even if you only have a small amount to set aside each month. Once I figured out what I needed to do, I got back to work and transformed this simple checklist into the Stockpile Savior. This is the ultimate guide to building a bulletproof stockpile. It takes you from being uncertain about your preps to being 100% confident that your family will comfortably survive the first 100 days and beyond of any disaster. And you won't have to waste hours researching what you need, visiting stores to compare items, or spending sleepless nights worrying about whether you've done your part to protect your family. What really sets this apart from anything else in the market is that I've done all the heavy lifting for you. See, it isn't just a simple guide. It's actually a step-by-step blueprint that practically does all the work for you. Think of it like a 10-day roadmap to build a bulletproof stockpile. Every morning for 10 days, you'll get a list of items that you need to stockpile for that day. You'll even get links to where to find the products, so you can simply open your guide for each day and follow the steps to build your stockpile. It really is as simple as waking up, pressing a few buttons, and waiting for your stockpile to practically build itself, without doing any real work yourself. And remember, you'll also get options for each budget. Whether your budget is high enough to afford the high-end Dom Perignon champagne version of this stockpile, or just enough to afford a bottle of Andre's champagne from a gas station, it won't matter. Because whatever your option you choose, you will build a bulletproof stockpile that protects you in the face of any crisis. I even asked friends in the US to test it out, and within days, they sent me these pictures. Check it out. Here's exactly what you get inside the Stockpile Savior. Part 1. How to build the ultimate food stockpile. First, you'll create a food stockpile that will make sure your family never goes hungry in a disaster. You'll discover why you're risking letting your family go hungry if you're counting on a garage full of MREs or other survival food for a crisis, and the 3 different types of food supplies you must stockpile before you buy a single MRE. Next, you'll discover the first food item that will fly off the shelf. So I'll tell you exactly where to get it before anyone else even realizes there's a crisis coming. Remember, it's almost impossible to survive without this item. After you've got what you need, you also need to store it safely. That's why I'll show you how to store 100 days worth of supplies using the little secret behind the success of the German U-boat sailors in World War II. This was the secret that allowed them to stay at sea for months on end without needing to restock even once. And finally, you'll discover the top 5 supply trashing mistakes almost every prepper makes. Number 3 alone causes preppers to lose hundreds of dollars spent on food. What's worse is, you won't even realize you made these mistakes until the time you're hungry, trying to dig into your supply and find out it's no good. After that, you'll get part 2, the safe and reliable way to ensure your family has access to unlimited water. Next, we'll ensure that your family has access to safe drinking water and hygiene conditions, even if your area is going through its worst drought. You'll discover the $5 tool that literally turns on the faucet anytime, anywhere. To you, this means having hundreds of gallons of water available on demand, even when the rest of the city is struggling to find any. Once you have access to water, you'll need a way to store it safely. I'd hate for you to believe experts who tell you you need to rotate water. That's why I'll show you how to economically store vast quantities of water that last for over 25 years. This secret was revealed by a retired military commander. And finally, I want you to remember, when there's no running water or garbage trucks, bacteria and viruses quickly make their way to you. That's why you'll discover how to avoid watching your house turn into a waste management nightmare. Without this system in place, you risk letting your family catch life-threatening diseases and much more. Then you'll get part 3. You'll never experience another blackout if you have these items. You already saw how having no power can render most of your preps useless. That's why the next thing we'll do is create a stockpile that ensures you have running electricity even if the rest of your city is living in rolling blackouts. You'll discover the DIY home power system that doesn't just protect you from blackouts, but also slashes the amount you pay for electricity practically overnight. Next, you'll also discover important information every generator owner must know. Forgetting these 5 crucial items could make your setup useless, forcing your family to live in the dark in a time of crisis. For me, that was fuel stabilizer. For you, it might be one of the 4 other crucial items. You don't want to take this risk. And finally, I'll show you the only 4 items you need to create your own packable solar system for a fraction of the price. So you're always powered up, even if you're on the go, and much more. After that, you'll get part 4, guns and ammunition. When your family's safety lies in your hands, you can't afford to be caught without these items. Nothing is more important than your safety. That's why you'll discover exactly which security items you need in your stockpile and where to find them. Next, I'll show you 3 ways to stop an enemy in their tracks before they even reach your property, without using any weapons or even stepping out of your own home. Finally, I'll show you a tiny, harmless item that saved dozens of lives in 9/11 and can save yours too if you add it to your stockpile now, and much more. Finally, I'll give you part 5, how to safeguard your health when hospitals and pharmacies shut down, when the modern healthcare system collapses. Your family only has you to rely on to take care of their health. That's why you'll need to know the sneaky way to create a stockpile of prescription medication without your doctor even catching on. You need to know this if you or your loved ones suffer from a chronic illness. And no, I'm not talking about animal antibiotics. In fact, starting from June 11th, 2023, even animal antibiotics are prescription only. That's why you need to know the safe, 100% legal way to stockpile antibiotics so you're protected from infections. You also need to know how to handle emergency situations without a trip to the ER. That's why I'll show you how to create an at-home emergency room using simple items anyone can get at their nearby store. Finally, you'll discover the comprehensive medical supplies checklist you must prepare to safeguard your family's health, plus where to get them before the general public panic buys everything, and much more. The best part is, this 10-day roadmap also comes with a comprehensive guide that takes you in depth and explains the purpose behind each of these items. So you aren't just blindly collecting items, but you're also understanding the importance of each of them and how to put them to use. It wasn't easy getting the information that's inside this program. It took months of blood, sweat, and literal tears to figure out how to create a truly reliable stockpile, one that leaves nothing to chance and gives you the confidence to protect your family no matter what the future holds. But today, I'm confident enough to say that this is the only program on the market that can truly help you survive the first 100 days and beyond of any SHTF situation. Without leaving you to do any of the research yourself, we're wasting thousands of dollars on unnecessary products. But I wanted to go one step further to make sure you're really covered. This is why, when you get the Stockpile Savior today, I want to send you 3 special reports to help you through these hard times. The first report you'll get is the invisible stockpile. When the out of stock signs hit, the mob goes crazy. They're willing to do anything it takes to get access to these essentials, including stealing from those like you who are smart enough to stockpile what they need. That's why the invisible stockpile shows you how to conceal your stockpile from the public eye, so no one can find your items, even if they manage to break into your home. You'll discover the clever way to camouflage your stockpile so no one realizes its value, even while looking directly at it. Next, I'll reveal 8 unexpected ways to conceal your stockpile, like hiding items in false plumbing or under the house between floor joists. And finally, I'll show you how to take advantage of outbuildings to hide your supplies without anyone realizing they're there, and much more. The second report you'll get is how to stay safe when your rights and guns are taken away by law enforcement. When the very people hired to protect you turn into your enemies, you need a new plan of action. And finally, the third report you'll get is riot survival tactics from a hardened policeman. The mobs don't just resort to theft when stores go out of stock. Riots actually break out on the streets, making it unsafe to even step out without risking your life. That's why it's essential to know these riot survival tactics straight from a hardened policeman. You'll discover the 6 things you need to know before you're caught in a riot. Forgetting number 3 could cost you your life. Next, I'll hand you the policeman's guide to instantly recognizing danger before a riot breaks out and preparing for security. Plus, you'll discover the most important thing you need to survive a riot. It's not guns, ammunition, or body armor, and much more. As soon as you have these reports, please make sure you open them right away to be sure you don't miss out. With these 3 reports, you can be one of the few who live in total peace, even if there's a complete disaster outside your window. You won't have to worry about your family going hungry, thirsty, or living for weeks in the dark. Because when you truly covered all your bases, you won't have the dreadful feeling of waiting for the other shoe to drop like every other prepper. That's what these 3 special reports will do for you. By now, you're probably wondering, how much is the incredible package going to cost? Look, with the Stockpile Savior on your side, you'll build a reliable stockpile that will help you survive the first 100 days of any disaster with absolute ease, in a matter of just 10 days. That means you'll be giving your family the gift of total peace, comfort, and safety in a situation where thousands of people are fighting just to get by. You'll be doing your duty to them every time you serve a fresh plate of food cooked with items from your stockpile, every time you hand them a clean glass of water, and every time you protect them from danger using items in your security stockpile. Plus, being the person with access to all these items when the rest of the city desperately needs them puts you at a huge strategic advantage. A $5 item could end up being worth $100 overnight at a time like this when people are happy to pay you anything just to get their hands on it. And that's not all. This stockpiling system also saves you from wasting thousands of dollars on unnecessary items, just like I did. On the other hand, without the Stockpile Savior, you'll always be the one desperately looking for what you need. In fact, you'll likely be one item away from endless chaos like I was. It almost cost me my daughter's life. I wouldn't want anyone else to face the fear that I did. That's why when you're considering everything that Stockpile Savior can really do for you, you can probably understand why my team was adamant that we set the price of this life-saving program at $297, which I think is extremely fair too. In fact, just by preventing you from buying some of the unnecessary items, this program would more than pay for itself. And yet, well, I know that we could charge $297 for the Stockpile Savior, and I'd sleep soundly at night. I didn't create this product to make a profit. In fact, I had no plans to release anything to the public at all. This started off as a project to save myself and my family from any more pain. And my goal has not changed. My goal here is only to help other families live comfortably no matter what the world throws their way, even if that means only covering the expenses of creating this book with its price tag and making no profits. Which is why if you decide to take action right now and say yes to this life-saving program, you won't need to spend $297 or even $197. And why instead, by taking action today, you can order the Stockpile Savior and the 3 additional reports. Special Report number 1, the invisible stockpile. Special Report number 2, how to stay safe when your rights and guns are taken away by law enforcement. Special Report number 3, riot survival tactics from a hardened policeman. For just a one-time special of $39. The only way to get this is to click the Add to Cart button now. For $39, you'll get immediate digital access to the Stockpile Savior. And you'll have a proven roadmap to build your stockpile in just 10 days. So you can thrive, not just survive in the face of any disaster. You can only get the Stockpile Savior here if you click the Add to Cart button now. But really, price doesn't even matter because it comes with a no questions asked 60-day money-back guarantee. We are absolutely certain that this will help you and your family thrive, not just survive in the face of any disaster. But we don't want you to take just our word for it. We want you to see what this program can do for yourself. That's why we want to offer you the opportunity to try the Stockpile Savior for yourself for the next 60 days with absolutely no financial risk whatsoever. It works like this. Simply click the big golden button that says Add to Cart and order your own digital copy of the Stockpile Savior right now. Then you'll have immediate access to the life-saving information in the Stockpile Savior. I want you to check out the valuable information inside this system and put it into action. We are confident that once you do this, you'll have what you need to know to safeguard your family from the first 100 days and beyond of any disaster in just 10 days. We've made this as newbie friendly as we could, but if you're not blown away by the knowledge revealed in it, and you're not absolutely thrilled with how easy this makes it for you to build your ultimate survival stockpile, then simply send us an email within 60 days and I'll send you your money back, no questions asked. The reason I'm offering this guarantee is because I have no doubt in my mind that you'll be shocked to see how easy it really is to prepare your family with the Stockpile Savior. And also because I like to do business the right way. And if we're not providing you with tremendous value, then we don't deserve your money. This way, you can see for yourself how great this program is without risking a thing. So go ahead and click the big button below and you'll enter directly into a secure order form. You've reached the point where your family's future relies on the decision you make today. This is the way I see it. You have 3 options now. The first option is to do nothing and leave your family's survival up to chance. Look, I hope that none of these survival black swan scenarios become a reality. I hope that you don't end up needing any of this in the future. But you have to remember that hope is not a strategy. Buying the Stockpile Savior today is like buying insurance for the future. You don't do it because you think something bad is going to happen. You do it because you'll sleep easier at night knowing that if something does happen, your family is covered. That brings me to my second option, which is to try this yourself. I did it for years, and you saw where it got me. Terrified to find out whether my mistake was going to cost me my daughter's life. I wouldn't wish that kind of pain on anyone. Or your third option is to take a chance with the Stockpile Savior today. Simply follow the instructions you get every morning, and 10 days from now, you'll have a bulletproof stockpile ready to help you survive any disaster without spending hours on research, wasting thousands of dollars, or losing any sleep worrying about what you need to ensure your family's survival. I want you to take a moment and think about the disasters that have already been set in motion in the US. When they inevitably hit, it'll be too late to prepare. Most of the important stuff will be flying off the shelves. By the time you realize you need something essential, it will be gone. That's why it's absolutely crucial that you don't waste any more time, and that you take action now to ensure your family's survival. Press the button below now, and I'll meet you on the other side.